If your pepper plants are not producing the way you expect them to, it usually starts right here in the beginning. So today I'm going to walk you through timing, heat, feeding, and also stress. What key indicators our plants are trying to tell us that they're stressed out so we can fix it early on. So let's go ahead, let's jump into it. Hey guys, so let's talk about timing, because timing is actually very, very important when it comes to pepper plants, because you only have a small window to start your pepper seeds inside and to get it right. So basically where I start is to find out my last frost date. So I'll go online and I'll go onto a website called garden.org, and basically I'll type in my zip code and it will tell me my last frost date. And what I do is I got a calendar here, and my last frost date's actually mid-April, and I'll write it down. And the reason why I write it down is, number one, so I don't forget it. And the other thing is basically it makes it a lot easier. Like, people think planting seeds are very difficult. Like, when to do it, they get overwhelmed, but it's really not that bad. Because if you read the back of these seed packets, it will tell you, like this one here for Johnny's, it says plant your seeds 8 weeks prior to transplanting outside. So I know I need to start this 8 weeks before my last frost date. And like I said, it's give or take depending on how things are cooperating. So basically I wrote down April 15th, and I'm just going to count back 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all the way up to 8. And bingo, that's the day I start my seeds indoors. So it's really not that hard when you're trying to figure out the timing, when to actually start your seeds. You could use the same method with tomatoes, cucumbers, or whatever, whatever you're growing inside. So flowers is another thing you probably want to start early on. So peppers and flowers are two things that take a long time because they like the heat. So that's the thing with timing. You want to get it right, because some people, I talk to them, it's like early February and they're planting their peppers. I'm like, what are you doing? You know how hard it is to manage these huge plants. They're oversized indoors. You're really not doing yourself a favor by starting it too early, because you could actually run into a lot of issues with your pepper plants from, stress. It's like they're only in these little pots. How many times you're going to pot them up? If you plant them too early, you're going to start in pots that are, by the time you're done, they're going to be this big. So timing is crucial. Just do the little method I showed you. Get your calendar out, write down on the calendar your last frost date, and count literally backwards 8 weeks. For me, from experiments in my area, 7 weeks actually works better for me. So in time, you'll figure out what works really good for you. So that's pretty much it on timing. And let's go ahead, let's move on to the next part. All right, so let's talk about heat. And do my pepper seeds actually need heat to germinate properly? The short answer is actually yes. And if you're growing your pepper seeds indoors in, say, like a tray like this, your soil temperatures are going to only be in the 60s. No matter how high you turn your heat on in your house, the soil temperature will never really peak past 70. And what you want to do is you want your pepper seeds to be sitting in soil that is warm between 80 and 85 degrees. It's not really the air temperature, it's really the soil temperature that's very vital, because in order for these seeds to actually swell up and split open and that sprout to shoot up, it needs to be sitting around 80 to 85 degrees. That's very, very important. This heat mat's actually set at 85, so it's on right now. It's heating. So it's got to go up almost 2 degrees. And I'll take it to the bottom. And this actual heat mat is 4 foot wide, and it's basically doing the whole bottom of this rack. And the reason why I use the long one is because I'm doing multiple pepper seeds at one time. Let me just show you this one here. This whole tray right here is basically sitting at 80 something degrees. It's nice and warm. And this little probe is in the soil here. I'll just pull it out real quick. And that actually will send the temperature up to that little thermostat, and that thermostat will turn on or off. And if you notice, even the humidity rate inside this plastic, I didn't have a tray cover for this, so I put plastic over it. And basically all these pepper seeds are doing really well. But once you start seeing things like the germination, once you start seeing them pop through, I'll just show you some. These are broccolis here. So anyway, once you start seeing them come through the soil, that's when you want to turn your heat mat off. You don't want, this is kale here, you don't want to basically have heat on and have a whole bunch of, if I seen a whole bunch of green sprouts here, I would take this plastic right off, or one of the humidity dome. You do not want your heat mat on once you have your germination is successful. You take the heat off, they don't need to heat anymore. Just a quick tip on the heat mats. I just showed you my pepper plants growing under humidity domes and also on the heat mat. But once you start seeing sprouts, I'm going to use this for example. Once you start seeing germination, they start sprouting through the soil. Basically, that's the time where you want to take the humidity domes off. You no longer need them. And also, you want to take the trays off of the heat mats, because these heat mats are only for germination. You only want that soil between 80 and 85 degrees for germination only. Once they start sprouting up, your regular room temperature in your home is efficient enough. Now, if you're in the garage and your garage is like 50 degrees at night or 50 at the max, that's a different story. Maybe leave them on a heat mat, but set it down to 70 degrees, because around 55 degrees is when your pepper plants basically, since they're warm season crops, they kind of just shut down. They slow down a lot and they don't really grow. And you don't want any kind of, you don't want it to start having root rot. So your pepper plants need 80 to 85 degrees to germinate. Once they're set and they start germinating, you could now take them off the heat mat, take your humidity domes off, and just make sure your temperature stays above 55 degrees. And now I'm talking about the soil temperature. Very, very important. Growing your own pepper plants is so rewarding because the peppers that come off them are actually really sweet. You have the peppers growing and they started sprouting. Now they're a couple inches tall and they start showing a second set of leaves on there. The first set of leaves are nice and smooth and like kind of oval shaped. The next ones are a little more like different looking. You're going to see it's called the true leaves. The second set of leaves look a little different. And when that starts to happen, that means the plant is starting to mature a little bit. It's making its root system down below the soil, and you want to make sure you feed it. And feeding it means giving it some fertilizer. And what you do with the fertilizer is you could mix it in some water, like it's called a water soluble fertilizer. I mean, you could put some like little granules on the top, but just make sure you don't put it where they're touching the stem of the actual plant, because it could burn the actual stem. And then once it burns it, it pretty much will take the plant out, and you'll be down one plant. But the thing is, the reason why I say use a water soluble means is when you take fertilizer and you dilute it with water. For example, if you take like 2 tablespoons of a water soluble fertilizer, you mix it in with a gallon of water. Sometimes people use sprayers, they spray it on. And if you do happen to spray it on the top, just spray a little bit of clean water afterwards to kind of clean the plant off a little bit if you get fertilizer on the plant. Or you could just basically do some bottom watering, where you would basically pour it in the bottom, let the soil soak up some of the liquids, which has the fertilizer in it. And then after 15, 20 minutes, you just pour out the excess out, because you don't want it sitting in a puddle of water. You want to make sure that, you know, all these at the bottom, they have holes at them. They're all basically, they're like drain holes, but they also, a dry soil will suck water up into it. So that's another way of watering your plants. You either do it on the top or from below. But the thing about it is, once they start showing their true sets of leaves, which are the second set, you want to fertilize them, and you want to just take a good look at the plant, you know, every other day, and just make sure you monitor the color. One common color you see with pepper plants is purple. And sometimes when you see purple, that's an unbalanced mix. Like a lot of times it's not getting phosphorus. It's usually, or if it's yellow, it means it's not getting nitrogen. There's a couple key things you could look for the healthier seedlings. That's why when you use a fertilizer, use something very early on, use something very balanced, like a 333 or a 555. You could just go to your regular box store and get that, or you could order online, get a nice organic fertilizer, which I would recommend. And, you know, you could just keep it growing nice and healthy. But if you do start to see colors, that means it's telling you something. There's a problem. Now, if you see purple and you're like, I am fertilizing it, I don't understand why I still see purple. A lot of times that means your soil might be too cold. You know, that's where it starts getting around that 55-degree mark again. And when the plant turns purple, it means it's stressed out. And I'm talking about a pepper plant. It means it's stressed out, and means purple means it's not getting enough phosphorus. It might be in the soil because you're fertilizing it, but the plant can't uptake it into the plant because the soil most likely is too cold. So just there's a couple key things you want to look for. And those are two of the biggest I see with pepper plants. Sometimes people will send me a picture or show me a picture of their plant, and I see purple on there. I'm like, right away, I know, like, hey, watch your soil temperatures, or just make sure your soil's not sitting too wet, because that's another issue. Your plant will tell you when it's stressed out. Just like a baby. When a baby starts crying, it's either hungry, got to change the diaper, or it's ready to go to sleep. The plant obviously is not audible, it's more a visual. So it will tell you when there's an issue. Another key indicator that there's a problem is, like, for example, say if your plant's about 6 to 8 inches tall and then you're starting to see early flowering. Your plant should not flower that early on because it doesn't have the root system to support the flowering, and it should really be working on building a nice canopy, which would be like a bush, you know, to make a nice strong structure to hold, you know, say if we're doing bell peppers, they're heavy. So I know it really is a painful idea in your mind. You're like, to pick them off, but you have to, because the plant's trying to tell you it's stressed out. And a lot of times when they start early fruiting means that number one, maybe you're not watering them correctly. Don't let them dry out where they start going into stress mode, like a survival mode. Because plants, honestly, a lot of times the problem is you have root bound, you know, say you have a smaller cell, say it's smaller than this, and it's most likely either root bound, or you have a nutrient imbalance, meaning like it's getting, you know, you're fertilizing it, but you're using the wrong fertilizer. You know, it's not like a balanced fertilizer where it's getting the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium pretty equally. It's hard to say sometimes. Or another thing is it doesn't have enough light. You know, you don't have enough light over top of your plant. There's a couple things that will cause that. And you want to make sure that you pull those little flowers off. I know it's very painful to do because you're like, oh man, it's doing what it's supposed to do. But it's like having a little 2-year-old grow a mustache. It's just not right. Something's wrong.
Do yourself a favor, get a little clip-on fan for your rack, and it helps the seedlings in a few ways. It strengthens the stems by creating the resistance against it by constantly blowing on it. And it also helps keep the soil surface from staying too wet, which will reduce disease. And always, just a quick tip, just to save yourself a headache later, label everything, because early on pepper plants almost all look identical when they're young, and it's very easy to lose track of which one is which. Okay, lastly, before you bring your pepper plants outside permanently, they need the time to adjust. This process is actually called hardening off, where you gradually introduce them outside for an hour or so, and under different conditions, sunny or cloudy, and for several days, and the plants will adjust to the sunlight and temperature fluctuation. I really enjoyed making this video for you guys. So just a recap of a few things that we talked about. Start your peppers at the right time, give them warm soil to germinate, and once they're growing, give them some good, nice organic fertilizer, and watch for those early signs of stress. Those simple things make a huge difference, and I love being able to share this stuff from a backyard level. This stuff just makes me so happy. It's my passion, but most of us learn the hard way, and that's what happens when we first start growing peppers. But once you start to recognize these signs early, you'll save yourself a lot of frustration, and you'll grow yourself much stronger and better pepper plants. So, and if this helps your pepper season, that's a win. So like, share, subscribe, and share this with somebody that you love and really like to garden with, and I'll see you on the next one.